So Rebel Moon Part 1. Yeah, this movie. Regardless of the bad initial reviews that it got, I went into it with an open mind, but I was definitely not surprised by anything that I saw on screen. We basically watched a montage travel clip for 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's basically like the first Shrek movie, where they were taking Fiona to Lord Farquaad and they just encountered loads of issues along the way, meeting a ton of different people. It genuinely had that feel to it. It's hard to find the positives in this movie, but I did manage to find a few, so it's not all doom and gloom. But before I do that, I've got to call out everything that I felt was wrong with it, and why I feel it ultimately failed and fell short of what it tried to achieve. So let's get into it. Here is everything wrong with Rebel Moon Part 1. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The lack of scale. One major thing that I think this movie got wrong from the off was the fact that everything that it felt like Kora was fighting for, the ability to loosen the Motherworld's grasp and to prevent the village and other places from being annihilated, it was something which felt like the threat just wasn't really that pressing. The only threat that I ever felt was when Sam was about to be harmed by all of those soldiers which had taken over the village, and that was only because we had a small bit of time with the villagers before the troops arrived. And we had some kind of connection with the characters. I say that with a pinch of salt, by the way. We didn't have much time with them, but we probably spent the first 25 minutes of the movie there. But in that moment specifically, there was pace and rhythm to events which were occurring, and it felt like something bad was going to happen. Sam was lured into a room, taken by men, and was on the cusp of something horrific, so it felt like there was something to actually be fearful of. Whereas my problem with the larger issues at scale and the fact that Kora wanted to build an army to take on the soldiers when they eventually returned is that despite the fact that we saw what the Motherworld could do to planets, the fact that it all just happened so quickly and there was no real time spent on the planets that were destroyed, nor with the people that were impacted, it meant that we didn't really see the motives behind everybody's individual reason to want to resist. We never really got an understanding of truly how dangerous they were. We only saw it from a macro perspective. We didn't know the Motherworld's army's size, their weapons, and how they attacked in the present day. Not really. It was all just kind of brushed over after us having a small insight. Take the Vitica, for example. We got a brief glimpse of the character and the planet that they were on. Then about 2.5 minutes later, Admiral Atticus Noble was there, killed them, and destroyed the planet. It almost meant nothing to me. Yeah, we saw how ruthless they were, but the destruction of the planet didn't really show me anything or make me fear them anymore, because it just looked like a handful of soldiers that were present. Is this the mighty Motherworld which were annihilators of planets? It just felt a bit small scale considering the large scale impact that it was trying to imply. The fact that Kora quite literally collected a handful of people to fight for the village also made me question how on earth they're going to take down the Motherworld and its forces. Surely the village and those new recruits aren't going to make a dent when it comes to the casualties. And if the Motherworld fighters are as skilled as what Kora makes them out to be, then it's never going to work. So yeah, scale was a big issue for me. The lack of connection to the characters. Considering that this entire movie was us following Kora around with her rounding up a bunch of characters, you'd think we'd be connected to them, because that was the main thing that the whole of Part 1 was about. But it doesn't give you that feeling at all. Instead, like I said in the intro, you get more of a montage of just encountering these people who the Motherworld have done wrong, and people that have had their lives ruined by them, followed by a quick 10-minute section of seeing how well they fight or hearing about their reputation. Then you just hop on a ship and find the next person. The same goes for Kora. We spent all of this time with her, heard her backstory and how she came to be Kora, the princess's guard, then the most fierce warrior that there's ever been, coining the name the Scargiver. But I just felt nothing. I still felt like I knew nothing about her. It's because it almost tried to do too much in such a short period of time, and there was no complexity to it. It was just following the route and it all just being shown to us in such a simple, bland way. I'll tell you the only character that I was intrigued about in this movie, JC-1435. There was a conscious decision that the robot had made to not fight following the slaying of the king. There was mystery and intrigue, plus they also killed one of their soldiers following seeing them doing something bad, so it showed that it had morals and it fights for what it believes is right, which is something that goes against the Motherworld's troops, providing a complex bit of friction that we didn't really see get developed. We probably only had about 1.5 minutes of screen time with that character, so that's something that I'd like to see more of in the next part of the movie. This whole movie was about rounding up characters, and none of them really shone. However, the performance of the character Admiral Noble was one that I thought was pretty good. He personified evil, and you really got the impression that he enjoyed the suffering of others in order to strengthen himself, which was exactly what they were going for. But other than that, I don't know. There was just nothing there for me. Even Kai turning out to be a double-crosser, I just found it so uninspiring and almost predictable. There were only so many routes that it could have gone down, and that was a glaringly obvious one. Gunnar was a character that I thought was a bit pathetic too. The fact that he single-handedly caused the issue by going against the father of the village, yet in the end being the person who was deemed to be the hero, was a bit stupid. Because if he hadn't have done it in the first place and he listened to what Kora said about keeping his mouth shut and lying to them, it might have ended up differently anyway, and they might not have needed to have even been in that situation. So yeah, I didn't really feel connected to the characters. They all just felt a bit meh. The cringy moments. This movie was something which was filled with moments which just made me cringe and laugh. Something which I feel you shouldn't necessarily find in a film that has this sort of theme to it. One which is about villages, people and planets being oppressed and destroyed. There was one moment in particular which just sent me howling. When Darian Bloodaxe jumped onto the ship in order to stop the Motherworld ships from firing at the Resistance, which resulted in his death, the companion that went with him let out such a large scream and then went into a rage of just firing her weapon. It took you out of the moment completely, and at that point I was just sitting there thinking, what on earth? Other moments as well, such as watching General Titus just in this weird pose whilst being bathed by somebody. Most of the delivery of Kora's lines when it came to expressing emotions, and even when she was trying to convince Titus, so much of the delivery from a lot of the characters just didn't feel that natural. It almost felt overacted or like it was being delivered on stage, rather than in a movie, so it just felt slightly out of place, which then meant that it resulted in moments that were just a bit too cringy for me. So what was good? This movie was very Snyder in terms of the way that it looked and felt, and to be honest, there's nothing else like it when it comes to Snyder. So for example, the slow motion battle scenes were really nice on the eye to watch. The choreography for some of the individual moments in fights was also really impressive to look at too. The camera would go in so close that you felt like you were a part of that fight, and I enjoyed that aspect of the viewing experience. I would also say that the choral music that we would hear which would accompany the battles was something which I also appreciated, and it added to the emotive mood of the battle scenes, making them feel royal and like they were rather epic, albeit if brief. The grading, colour palette and hue that the movie had was something which suited it too. That's the thing, from a visual and audible perspective, I don't think there's that much wrong with the movie, but the story itself was just utterly pointless and boring, and it didn't establish much at all. I know Snyder said the director's cut is like a completely different movie, but just make the right movie the first time. It's getting ridiculous having directors come out and defend their movies by being like, oh yeah, this isn't how I really wanted to make it. Well, don't take the job on then, or wait until you get the opportunity to make it how you want to. So I do think it's a bit silly when directors come out and say that. But anyway, there wasn't much good about this movie from a storytelling perspective or the pacing of it and the way that it connected, and it's a shame, because whilst I didn't have the highest of hopes, I was prepared to give it a chance. So, there you have it, Everything Wrong with Rebel Moon Part 1. What did you think of this movie? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.